Everyone has a bright light inside of them that deserves to be seen by the world. That's why it's time to shine the light on the extraordinary, who are accomplishing phenomenal things. This is the Shine Out Loud Show with Lillian Abogo and Tay Kofi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Shine Out Loud Show with me, Lillian Abogo, and the incredible Tay Kofi.
Thank you so much. I love your intros. I just love your intros. And I don't pay very well.
And today, aside from it being International Women's Day, and we will come back to that, we have another incredible woman in the house. We have Nicola Millington.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Oh, now don't be scared. Trust me, we won't bite. Not even if you ask nicely.
We don't do that.
So, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And, you know, we thought, who could we have? International Women's Day. We thought we wanted a woman who was a founder, a creator in her own right, to actually represent and say, yes, let's talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, today is a really great day for women. Obviously, and I've been sharing a lot of information on social media, like a lot of other women have been as well. And it's good to actually have a platform where I can speak my truth, if you want, and use it as a way to have my voice heard on this great day, special day.
Right.
So, yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. So let's start with you. Tate, do you mind if I take this question?
Please, go ahead.
What does International Women's Day mean for you?
It's two things. The first thing is this one specifically, 2017's International Women's Day, comes at a convergence, at a time where there's a lot of crossroads going on internationally, from political, American obviously, as well as in the UK with Brexit, and also it just comes off the back of that massive women's march that happened earlier on in the year.
Exactly.
And so 2017's International Women's Day just has a stronger resonance, and you can't take away from the energy that brings to the world. So specifically for 2017's one, I think it just continues the momentum of being aware of the power of women out there, the voice. And it just gives people a little bit more focus, because I think in everything in life, as a cycle of life, you just go through peaks and troughs. And so you need these moments that help to bring to reality, you know, what's going on in the world. So that's the first thing. The second thing, however, I think, and I've seen a lot of it again on social media, because that's how we've been communicating all across the world at the moment, is that actually I've seen a lot of messages that are really saying that actually International Women's Day is like almost like Mother's Day, and any kind of like key days, you don't have to use it as the only opportunity to celebrate women. And I'm liking that message. So it's allowing that message to come out on this special day. So it's acting on two levels. One is just continue the momentum that's going on since 2017 started, but also it's allowing people to voice actually there's a transition going on. And 2017 International Women's Day for me is very different from any other one.
You know what, that's really, I like that point about the convergence and bringing together. And I think there's even that whole drive for it to be not just a day, it should be the whole month should be celebrated for women. And globally, what women are coming up, and you said something very important about speaking truth. A lot of women stand up and say, no, this is our truth, and this is what we're saying. Now, but let's wrap this and bring this back to you. Like I said in the very beginning, you're a founder, a creator. You have FP Comms.
Yes.
And your tagline is marketing with love.
Yes.
So when Tate brought this up to me and said marketing with love, I know I raised an eyebrow, looked at him and go, okay, you need to explain this to me. So Tate, where did you find this woman?
Well, it's extraordinary. My company, Journalink, does a lot of work in PR, startups, entrepreneurs, and so on. And when we blog on our site, one of the most difficult things is to find the tone of voice that sits with somebody who's starting off as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I was looking for a guest blogger for a change of tone, different tone of voice, and so on. And I picked up the phone. I was thinking, okay, I've got to explain to her what I'm looking for and this and that. I said hello, kind of the opening gambits on both sides. And then she launched into this whole idea about marketing with love. And I realized that I didn't have to explain what we were looking for because she was exactly what we were looking for. And that's how I first met Nicola. She's written a couple of pieces for us. And the response from businesses has been terrific. And you can't fake that tone of voice and that mentality, that kind of empathy for the client. So that's why we continue to work together.
Okay, that's really awesome. So marketing with love, let's talk about that.
Well, quite a few people asked me about the tagline actually, and I would say it came to me rather than I found it.
Right.
And it was basically, I was looking for something that resonated, that made me stand out from the crowd, because you have to stand out from the crowd, especially as a marketing company, but also something that spoke to me, like something that was really part of my DNA. And I'm a woman with a high matriarchal family, and I was, if you say, born into love. When I first met my grandmother, I just recognized what love was.
Oh, wow.
And it was that essence that I wanted to carry over into the business. And so I did start out with things like marketing with passion, marketing with trust, and marketing with something. And it was always because I needed the word marketing in there, because FP Comms in itself doesn't explain what we do. And I just kept playing around with the words, and nothing resonated like marketing with love was. Although originally I wasn't comfortable with that phrase. So it took me a long time to get it took me a long time to become comfortable with it. And I think the lack of comfortability with it, if that was even a word.
It is now.
Being comfortable with the word came about actually when I recognized that I wanted it to reflect really what was in my heart, and I wasn't concerned about what other people were thinking about it, because the word love, especially when you think about marketing, one, it doesn't have a real synergy in regards to how people perceive a company that does marketing.
Exactly.
And then secondly, it also doesn't really communicate to people who, what's the word I'm looking for, who are really looking for what you would call strong marketing.
Right.
The word doesn't give that.
Right.
People think of it as a little bit frou-frou, that, just something that's airy-fairy and out there. But love itself, as we know, is a very strong inbuilt emotion, but people don't use it in that level. So,
and certainly they don't associate it with something like marketing.
No.
Marketing is considered typically actually quite a clinical, quite cold.
Absolutely.
Emotion-free.
Yeah.
I mean, you're hitting the customer's, nerves, and they're responding in that way. But the idea of empathy, which is the thing, of course, you can't have love without empathy.
Yeah.
The idea of empathy for me is what stood out.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to communicate. And then from there came a growth of the business itself.
Right.
And even some of the services that we started to provide started to actually reflect exactly what the ethos of the company was. So you do normal marketing stuff as most companies would, but things like flexible, we got something called flexible PR,
right,
which allows people to pay based on results.
Okay,
and
that's new.
Well, when you speak to people, the reason for that was basically so that we can get to learn about the client without them having to pay a whole heap of overheads, first of all, before they started to see results.
That's revolutionary.
Right? And so that was born out of me thinking about, like, how do I get businesses to communicate confidently and effectively to grow? And then there's a bigger foundation that lies beyond that. But that's essentially how Marketing with Love initially came out. It kind of found me, and then it started to grow business. And
okay,
yeah, I mean, I've got another problem now with everyone else is using the word love, and it's kind of like, okay, how do you stay true to that and really help it to grow?
Okay, so you've just touched something in the head. Once you start something, it seems to be you look around, everybody is doing it, and so yes, you're a marketer, you do quite a lot of things. Why should we care? Why should we care about your business and what you do?
I would say, first of all, you shouldn't just care about my business. You should care about any business that is helping to grow a better economy. So I can only give to the world my skill set.
Right.
And I can only give to the world my own viewpoint, right? So there's loads of marketing companies out there. But specifically for FP Comms, and I'm hoping other people will be doing this, is the foundation under which I'm built. So first of all, I mentioned my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So that's solid. That's who I am. It's part of my DNA. Secondly, I've got 2 sons. They're young black boys. And I want in their future to have the choice of working with good, ethical, sustainable companies. Now, if I can get to how I can cause effect and change is if I can get to, let's just say, 100 businesses now as they're growing who become the future leading brands. My sons and their friends have 100 businesses to choose from across a range of sectors who care about them as human beings. Because that DNA that we put in them now, the businesses now, if we show good return on investment, if we show sales growth, and they recognize actually compassion, empathy, love helps a good business to grow, they'll carry that way all the way through. And even if they have managerial structure change, whatever, those things will stay forever. And my sons and their friends will have good companies to work for. And that's the foundation. So that's why you should care, because actually, in my thinking of it from a small nugget now, this small acorn now, the future generations have got a hope.
Okay, and that, my dear, right there, I think if we were to stop the interview now, is worth you being here
Good
today.
point.
Is worth the point, because that
You
right
know very
there is just really incredible. Because when you are looking at your businesses and the business you work with, not just your business, but the business that you interact with, from a standpoint of you are creating a mission, and it's a mission of love. And really, I'm really impressed. So yes, that's your so what factor for your business.
Can I just say that, before we came in here, I got Nicholas a business card, and it's a kind of plum colour. When you flip the back, it doesn't look like your average marketing consultancy. And you said to me how you developed that corporate identity with your designers. What was the story behind it?
Again, it's just me being a little bit crazy in my creativity. So I have worked in marketing for a number of years, and my company, FP Comms, started out officially in 2013, officially launched. And my designer was like, okay, coming up with ideas. And he said, well, what do you want to communicate? And I said, I really want it to have a feeling of Vivienne Westwood.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of like, don't give a damn, out there, run the world by your own rules, and really just say, right, here I am. I'm here on purpose. You're going to take me just the way I am. And that's what I wanted to create with the logo. And then he came up with a few ideas, and there were two. And one, I say, looked like a marketing company, and the one was the one I picked. And everyone I showed the logo to, they picked the one that was looking like a marketing company. Every single person. I showed it to about 20 different people, and every single one of them turned around and picked the one that looked like a marketing company.
Right.
And so I said, okay, that's perfect, because I'm going to pick the other one. I don't want to look like a normal marketing company, and I want it to stand out. And so people are like, well, people won't recognize you, but then they do, because they're like, it's a beautiful logo. And
exactly.
It's about being distinctive, isn't it? And I think it goes to the zeitgeist. I mean, the if you like, the theme of our times is that people need to have their voices heard, don't they?
Yes.
I mean, especially as women. What's interesting, I mean, I'm a fella, obviously. I'm a guy. And one of the things that struck me was when the Trump phenomenon took place, and a lot of stuff, misogyny, was actually used as a means not only to beat women up, but also to get votes.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat back and I wondered what was going to happen. So I didn't know, well, is this for me as a man to speak up and say this is wrong? Obviously there was that. But I was also curious to see how women were going to respond. Now, you guys might take this for granted. What stunned me was the unity of voice that this event created. Actually, I think a lot of men didn't realize
that it was as if you were all talking across the continent, across the planet. It was as if you were all talking to each other privately and personally. So do you think that this International Women's Day, something special, something extra is happening? I mean, that to Lillian as well, as women, do you think something special is happening that has never happened before? Or has this always been there, just low-key?
I think you're the guest. Why don't you answer first and I'll come in later?
I will just say, I'll just keep it very brief. I'm glad for Trump and I'm glad for Brexit. I really am, because it really does force people to get out of their comfort zone and start moving in the right direction.
Smell the coffee.
Yeah, and there's no amount of PR that can make that happen. You can't generate this unity by, it's almost like you're pushing against something and the door's being flung open. That's what Trump and Brexit has done for the European westernized world. And they're now feeling, the rest of the world is now feeling what other continents have been feeling for a long time when their voices have not been heard. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that actually it's not just something that, you know, like I said, that happens at the beginning of the year and kind of like dies off. I'm hoping that actually it builds a momentum where we really do begin to propel ourselves forward. And not just for women. I'm talking about changing men's attitudes in general, changing our boys' attitudes, changing how they deal with black boys in the streets of America, changing how they view, you know, the commercials that you see even for the charities, changing how they view even those things. I mean, because those are human beings. So, yeah, I'm for myself, I take Trump any day of the week.
Oh, that's an image that nobody wants. But no, I have to agree with you, and most people that know me will go, "Oh no." I have to agree with you. There is a level of what's happening is necessary. It's necessary for the next step, for the evolution of us as people. It's necessary, and especially from a perspective of people of color. We cannot sit back at this moment and say, well, somebody else is going to come and rescue us from our malaise. We are actually saying, no, you know what? Let's rescue ourselves this time. We have no time to sit back because this is actually detrimental. Now, for me, International Women's Day is actually very important. And there is a unity, there is a strong pull for saying we are here. But what's actually even stronger is saying we are here, but we're not alone. Because there's a whole saying that we cannot talk about women's right and equality when we're not talking to men. We cannot have half the world's population standing in the background when I'm talking about my need to be equal, to be heard, to be seen, my voice to be taken seriously if the men are in the other corner of the room. So first and foremost, for me, this International Women's Day is really about this whole unity between the genders. And it's about saying, you have to be on my team, I have to be on your team, because we will not survive as humanity if we're not pulling the ship together. So that's the first thing. And you said something very important.
Lil, can I just take you back on that?
Sure.
Now, do you think that this perspective is something that is more clear to people of color than people kind of outside that grouping?
I think it's actually for me, I think it's something that's becoming clearer and understanding. Now, there's always fractions and there's always people who will cling to certain ideologies and ideas and isms that they have grown up with, or beliefs that they, there's a blog piece that I'm going to put out at the end of the week that says we have been scared out of using the F word for especially for Black women and women of African descent, that we are afraid of the F word. And when I'm talking about the F word, I'm talking about feminism.
Oh, yeah.
What did you think I was talking about?
I knew it wasn't the other thing, but I was thinking, where was this going?
Yeah. We've been scared out of using the F word, because if you speak to, the average African woman, or when I say African woman of African descent, woman who may have been born here, anywhere in the diaspora, and, I'm not a feminist, but I believe in women's rights. And you're like, okay. And it's almost like we have to quantify what we mean about feminism and being feminist, and when we talk about women's right, what that means. So my need to have my rights honored does not mean I take your rights.
For
And
granted.
and so this is, the more we get into that position, especially around our identity as people of color, the more we get into the position that me gaining my rights does not diminish yours. And you said something very important about your sons, and the work that you do is actually for your sons and their friends. I have two 6-month-old nephews who basically, I want them to be in a world where they know that they can stand in the workplace and be paid for the work that they do and be recognized, as well as your female colleagues, for the same work that they do.
Mhm.
I want them to actually live in a world where it's okay for them to say, you know what, I would stay at home with the kids. My partner can work. Or I would do X, Y, and Z while my partner does X, Y, and Z. I want them to be in a space where they can be open to having those
choice.
conversations.
Okay. I mean, two things arise. Again, speaking as a man on International Women's Day, you bring up this idea that the notion of feminism has been appropriated by particular groups, and that it's almost as if people of color have to go and claim it and redefine it to make it relevant for them. Why is this so?
I don't think it's people claiming it and we are going to reclaim it. I think, Nicola, help me out here.
Go ahead.
I think it's more a case of
I think
this fear of what it means to be a feminist, this ideology. And when you still have men in public figures calling feminists rabid and thinking it's okay, when you're using that in a Western context, what more so in Lagos or in Ghana, where women are still confined about certain traditions?
I think also, to piggyback on what Lillian was just saying, there's obviously you've got the cultural aspects of it, right? So things like feminism seems like probably I'm from Guyana, South America. So things like that is kind of like luxury in a way to even have that label to say, because you're just getting on with your life, right? So not the ones that are in the Western world, I'm talking about people that live and raise over there. But I would say this much about the whole International Women's Day and feminism and what it's opened up the doors for people of colour or black people. For me, I look at things like UK black-owned businesses having a door now beginning to open. It's just taken off that edge of you having a chip on your shoulder and you being able to claim your own. Now that 50% of the human race, women, whose voices are being raised, this is now opening up the door to so many other groups that have felt disenfranchised to also have a voice. So things like, the Black Wall Street, you're hearing those words being brought back up again. The economics of black banks, all those things are coming up again. And people are actually paying attention to them because they're like, 50% of this world's population, like I said, has opened up their voice, and there's no kind of like going back on let it slip. Exactly. Or let it slip. And there's a saying in journalism where they say, when you've got really bad news, it's a day to really let go of other bad news, right? It feels a little bit like that. Now that feminism and women's rights are really coming to the forefront and it's really loud, everything else is now being given the space for black people to start to open up a little bit more, and we're paying attention.
Yeah.
You're really paying attention, and that's what I'm loving as well. It's just kind of like opening up that door. You're seeing a lot more black female pundits going out there from politics, science, all those kind of areas where you didn't hear those voices before, and that for me is the power.
Exactly. And, I'm going to touch on this because you're a founder, you're a creator, you've created your own business, and you're doing quite well with it. You're doing so much. But as a woman of color, what would you say has been the number one frustration for you?
Two things. It's not even one. One is my own self-doubt, my own inability to really fully accept how, and this might sound a little bit obnoxious even by saying it, just tells you the point, how wonderful I am to create this great opportunity. Just recognizing that and not allowing that barrier to stop me from being this.
Right.
So that's the the first thing. The second thing is also recognizing that actually, because I've got this great vision and I'm preparing myself forward, come hell or high water, not everyone else sees that dream. And so their fears, their inhibitions, I shouldn't get frustrated with them because it's not open to them.
It's a
And so
different journey.
therefore I have to keep working that little bit more to find the right people for me. And that has been my biggest frustration. It's kind of like I lose patience with people that don't see it, but I can't because it's not their place to see if they're not the right people.
I mean, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that a lot more people are being heard and being spoken. Kind of appearing in media. Do you think that it's possible to make a difference without being visible and without speaking?
Not necessarily without speaking, because I think you always have to be able to communicate. That's, saying that there's many people that don't have the privilege of having a voice, a physical voice, as I do, who communicate very well, I'm sure. But when you ask the question about visible, I'm assuming you mean in terms of more like celebrity.
Celebrity, actually, visibility is, on one level, it's celebrity, but celebrities are relatively few. I'm talking about ordinary, everyday people, because right now, most of us communicate through social media. Mm-hmm. And it's a question of what we say and who we say it to. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the conversations appear to happen in silos. So there are many things that that I'm not going to teach you anything. I mean, I'm not going to teach Lillian anything. She knows what I'm talking about. But when it comes to having that conversation with the wider public, people who don't know what your voice sounds like, mm-hmm. people who don't know what you think, what's your position on that? Is this now the time for people to actually speak publicly about things which they've kind of whispered behind their hands to their private friends and so on till now?
It depends on where you want to go, what your vision is, what your target is. Mm-hmm. I think to take your question back a little bit mm-hmm. in regards to visibility, mm-hmm. I think there's a conflict there sometimes, right? So the conflict can be people are chasing for their voice to be heard, chasing celebritydom. Mm-hmm. Right? They are chasing that because to be seen, you have to do something outrageous. To be seen and to be heard, you have to stand out across, above the noise, above the crowd. So you have to do that. Mm-hmm. However, it doesn't mean that actually to be successful, you have to be visible all the time. You don't have to be that famous person all the time to be successful. And I think we shouldn't take away the fact that actually some people out there that are building great empires, great businesses and doing great things, you may not know of out there. You've
got a great example of that, actually, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. I do. So there's a woman who I found out about literally about 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, about 7 days ago, a woman called Cathy Hughes. Mm-hmm. She's an American TV media network. Tycoon. Yeah, she's a media tycoon. And she is bigger than Oprah in regards to she is the largest owned independent.
She's worth billions.
Yeah. Independent media owner in the world. She actually worked initially without I even knowing. So this is how you talk about crossover. I saw an interview with her where she actually worked with my ex-boss.
Wow.
John Malone. He was my boss. And I remember really clearly thinking, and she mentioned his name, and I was like, oh, I remember clearly thinking actually, he was the reason I started my company. I remember clearly thinking that one day he can wake up in the morning and decide to close down the company and I'm just an employee. And I was just like, no, I've got to take my own destiny in my own hand because I want more than just a salary.
Yeah,
I want to do more, which I spoke about earlier on. But yeah, Cathy Hughes is out there and she is, running the biggest independent And in America, we're not talking about in an African country. We're not talking about in a South American country. Not even talking about Australia. You're talking about in America, and no one knows about it, right? So she's sitting there and she's running this network, and she's giving so many people, Black people, employment, opportunities,
career development.
Yeah, it's amazing, and she's doing that, and no one really knows who she is. And so I think that's a great example of someone who is really successful. But everyone, if you say to anyone,
Kathy Hughes.
Yeah, they're like,
who? Kathy who?
Yeah,
exactly.
Who's your favorite media owner? Oprah. That's what everyone will say.
Well, because, give Oprah her dues. As a woman, she's done phenomenally. She's stood out in places where you didn't expect to see someone that looked like us, someone that sounded, we did not expect that. And she's there and she's standing.
I love Oprah.
Oh.
I love Oprah.
We could do a fan fest, but we'll come back to that. I will say, just sitting here talking to you, it's a real pleasure because as someone who owns a business, as someone who's creating something, to find someone that says, this is part of my DNA. You said something about it being part of your DNA. But you also said something that made me chuckle when you said, I'm going to say this, but it sounds obnoxious. And I was waiting for the obnoxious part. Weren't you waiting for the obnoxious part?
Actually.
I was waiting.
Did we miss it?
Apparently. And again, it's that issue about where, especially for women of color, we're almost taught we need to stand back and, don't be so loud. And we're not supposed to blow our own trumpets. We're not supposed to say we are actually good at something because it might make somebody else feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And, it's really amazing. So for me, I'm going to segue into this. My own so loud moment for the week. My personal one is for every woman, every Black woman that stands up and every woman of color, across the nation, across the world that says, I'm actually great at something. I do X, Y, and Z well. In fact, and sometimes I may not do it well, but I get up and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so every woman, and there's something about the power of, and which is, I think, is that convergence you're talking about, where women are saying, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And I have a good friend of mine who brought out a video this morning, and she was talking about women ask for what you want.
Yeah. I mean, Sheryl Sandberg started it, I don't know how long Lean In has been written, but a couple of years ago, 2015, right? 2015 or 2014, something like that. So she started that conversation going. And it's things like that, I think, when you talk about actually visibility, it's things like that propelled us to get to the position we are today, right? So, and a good example would be someone like Obama. Without Martin Luther King, you can't have an Obama.
Exactly.
And so without a Sheryl Sandberg in the boardroom of Facebook, one of the biggest, largest social media platforms there are there, writing a book called Lean In, I really believe the marches that you've got today don't happen. You need those kind of like stepping stones to get to where we are today. Yes, Trump tipped us over the edge, but literally, but at the same time, you need people like Sheryl Sandberg out there. And like you said, it's getting that confidence. And I said it kind of like tongue in cheek because you kind of like, you don't want to sound obnoxious, but the bottom line is, I really don't care.
You see, again, I mean, I'm right now. I'm really conscious I'm a guy, and I'm not saying a great deal because, to be honest, it's more interesting just to listen to what you guys are talking about. But men also have angles on this. A lot of men have daughters, and we all know what we went through. We all love our children, and we want a world in which, after everything you've gone through to nurture, grow, help, support, love this child, you want them as an adult to be able to make their own way in the world. It is completely unacceptable for somebody to decide to pay her less money. What? Because she's a what? It is absolutely absurd to me. Mm-hmm. And I think most guys are going to get that. The other thing that I've observed, and I'm very conscious now, more and more as I go, how invisible women of colour are. We don't rave them enough. We don't kind of praise them enough. We actually don't validate them enough. I'm speaking as a man. I don't know how it feels in your shoes. But once it becomes apparent that we don't sufficiently, well, you don't have to pedestalize somebody or fluff them up inappropriately. But I think that they deserve recognition for what they get. And for me, it seems that one of the most important things is for women to speak
Yeah.
loudly without being kind of in your face. Well, again, I'm really tippy-toeing with my words here because I don't want to give the wrong impression. But to speak visibly and audibly, not to each other, we want to talk to society. And for me, actually, I feel as if that is part of the mission of the Shine Out Loud show, this show here, this platform, so that we can hear voices like yours inspiring other voices to talk to other people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on a campaign at the moment because I'm doing some work with bloggers, influencers, so bloggers, Snapchatters, Instagrammers, the whole 9 yards. And one of the big things I'm really focused on, and it's something actually that sinks really in my heart, because as a Black woman, the one thing I've always said is I just want to be seen as a human being, just seen and loved as a human being. And I can use my voice, but I want, if any men are listening, if I use my voice, I want you to use your ears and listen.
Oh, that's a great quote.
Just listen.
I love that. Yeah.
And then we can begin that conversation. And I will promise as a woman that when you use your voice, I will listen. I promise to do that. But I want you to just take that step and, not park it as it's just a woman's thing or you just nagging no, listen, because above everything else, I'm human. I'm flesh and blood, just like you. And I just want to know that you care.
And that's actually very powerful. And I think that whole reciprocity of when one speaks, the other needs to listen. And the fact is that we cannot do this on our own.
No.
We can't reach equality without men.
No.
And men cannot be heard without us on side. So especially for men of color, we need each other. And, we need that support. And we need to stand beside each other to make sure that we get to where it is that we're going.
You mentioned listening. If you could wave a magic wand, Lillian, Nicola, if you could wave a magic wand, what is it that you would like most to see in the behavior of others towards women, particularly, say, men? If you could wave a magic wand.
Mine is really simple. I want to see a reflection of myself, and a reflection of myself is someone that loves you, that cares, because I don't like to be hurt. So that would be mine, just a reflection of me. I'm not saying you got to think
not some caricature.
No.
Not what they're thinking you might be putting out, but just the reflection of how you actually are.
Yeah, it brings tears to my eyes, to be truthful with you. I just want to see that I stand in front of you, a white man, white woman, black man, black woman, boy, girl, child, and you look at me, grandmother, whatever it may be, you look at me and I just see a reflection of myself, and you see love, and you see compassion, you see respect, because that's what I want to give to you, and I want to see that back to me. The reason there's always conflict is because you're thinking about you and I'm thinking about defending me. So what I need to do is we need to get a reflection back on ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's actually simple. I think for me, what I would want to see is men having the choice and freedom to be themselves. Not, and I'm going to use your phrase, not the caricature of what they think we expect masculinity should be, especially for men of color. That men of color can come out of that little box of what it means to be a black man.
I need to give this to people in writing. This is no. It's what you're saying sounds obvious and simple, but it's extremely wonderful to hear. Carry on. Sorry, I don't want to.
For me, is that having that freedom to be human. I personally believe that we have been in the position that we have dehumanized the black child, the black male, the black man, and we've made him into this ideology, and this a black man is
Caricature.
exactly a black man is X, Y, and Z. I want the black man that I know, love, support, to have that choice of freedom of expression. I, as a black woman, and I, as a woman, I have the freedom of my emotions. But I know that men, whether black or white, do not have that liberty. They don't have that freedom of emotion, because if a man cries, then there's labels attached to it, words like sissy, girl. When you have young black men who are using the word female as an insult among their peers, there's something broken.
Absolutely.
When you turn
Is
around,
that the current?
that's the current diss. You're acting like a female. I'm like, a female what? Spider? It's female cat. When did female stand for something that was derogatory? And and this is why when people address me, please don't address me as that female. I have a name. My gender, is, woman. If you need to go that way, you can call me a Homo sapien, but please don't address me in that term of that female, because it's derogatory when it's used. And it's like, so, it's taken away and re-educating and saying that men are allowed emotion. Men are allowed the right to have the freedom of their full range of emotions. And we need to stop making monsters out of our little boys. Because, like I said, I have nephews that I adore. I have little nephews and I have a big nephew. And I want them to have that freedom. I want them to show up in a world that says, I'm a complete human being, and you will address me and see me as such. And that is, if my magic wand, that's what I want.
Can I ask you a question? I speak frankly. See, what we've spoken about in the last, how long has it been? Jeez, it's 42 minutes.
Okay, it's blown by.
Have you ever heard anything like this conversation by people who look like us anywhere in the United Kingdom?
No.
On any medium?
No. I mean, Lillian, you just raised just now about, having these kind of conversations that you used to have in the front room, your parents used to have in their front room, and then you used to have in your front room, and I'm sure your grandparents had them in their front room, kind of thing. And I've always longed for this place where actually we stop having these conversations in the quiet of our own rooms, and they become more visible and they come out there. But can I just add something to what you said about choices and makeup? Yes. One of the things I did when I was thinking of my company before I started rebranding my company or branding my company was I was speaking to my oldest son. He's 17 now, and I was speaking to him about 5 years.
Excuse me?
5 years ago.
You're so good. Did you see the expression on her face?
Okay, we'll talk about that another time. But anyway, I was speaking to my son, and I said to him, I just had this clarity moment when I was speaking to him. He was getting ready for his GCSEs, and I said to him, do you know you can do anything you want to do? Just like anything. There's no limitations whatsoever. And I was speaking to his dad, and we're sitting there, and he's going, like, what do you mean? I'm like, Michael Jordan, because that was my analogy at the time. Like, Michael Jordan flies. He literally flies. And I think we've all got that power within us. What we don't do is tap into ourselves, tap into our full essence of who we are, to that bit where we can fly.
Yes.
And I said to my son, you need to tap into your fullest self to achieve whatever you want. And I said, it will take work because the world doesn't allow us to do that. No. But you can do that, whatever you want. And that just opened like the floodgates for him. It absolutely did. And he was a science kid, and he just came back from holiday from Dominique, and he's like, Mum, I made some decisions in my life. And he was like 14, wow. And I'm just like, okay, what are the decisions? And he's like, right, I want to travel the world, and this is what I want to do. And my heart sank like my child and going across the other side of the world. But anyway.
It happens.
Right, you do that. But I saw that I just gave him that opportunity. And it was things like the stress of him doing his GCSEs really did affect him, like really did affect him. And I sat down with him, and you don't do things like you don't do things like, as a black person, you don't do things like therapy, you don't do counselling, we don't do those kind of things. It's not part of the community, you just get on with it.
Yeah, because we're busy being strong.
Right, busy being strong. But I saw that actually having that conversation with him allowed him the space not to go crazy, but to have that conversation with me and his dad, and to just say, I can't cope with this. And he was strong with it. And then I was speaking to other parents and like, my child can't do that. I'm like, well, send them here. We'll have that conversation. And you just open up that door. And it was a great thing. And when you were talking just now, I'm just like, I didn't realize how powerful that can be, because I was just being mum and I was just figuring it out.
I mean, it is powerful. And I think we need more conversations like that. So for your son who's 17, and I'm really trying to not ask the obvious questions, but we'll have to.
Oh, you're so subtle.
Yeah, we will have to come back to this off air
because I think my jaw dropped visibly. But I mean, Lillian took it right in that.
You look 12. No offense.
Bless you.
I'm glad she said that, not me. But I'll just go ditto.
Bless you. I've come from good genes. Just put it that way.
You have incredible genes. Yes. Okay, so we have looked at you as a woman, you as a mother, you as a founder, you as a creator. So what is the one thing that you will tell anybody, male or female, coming up behind you who says, I want to start a company? What's the first thing that I need to know?
Gosh. The thing that holds me in good stead is really finding my roots. Like really finding my footing and who I am, and what really matters to me, and why you hear. Richard Branson's written a book called Losing My Virginity, which I love. I've read it a couple of times, and I always say that actually he kind of like fed me half a story, because it really doesn't tell you the trials and tribulations of running a business. It doesn't. You could talk about the bank didn't want to give him his loan for his airplane, but truly it doesn't tell you the trauma of it. It doesn't go into that at all. So finding who you are, knowing your real essence, finding your routine is so important, because that will carry you through when you just don't have the brain power, the energy, the money, the sense to stop. It will just carry you through to see the next day. And then you get opportunities like this to have these kind of conversations. And I swear to you, I will say this without any hesitation whatsoever. If my company stopped today because of this, after this conversation, my work has been done. Because we don't get these conversations out there. We don't. And I never thought I'd get...
What the conversations we're having here.
Absolutely. And I thought I'd have to go on Oprah to be able to have this message out there. But I feel like I just feel whole. I just feel whole with being able to express this right now. So I think when you find that thing, when you ask a question about, what advice I give is just find your footing. Just find... Footing is not even the right word. It's just find your soul. Just find that thing within you that really will carry you through. And, you hear about people talk about meditation and yoga and all that kind of prayer, everything. I say find it, use it, because it's something that is stronger beyond you to carry you through.
That's fantastic. And one of the buzzwords that I get a lot in my business is people talk about, especially if you're communicating with journalists, about authenticity. You're talking, we've got to have that other conversation. but there is, I think you're talking, are you not? Tell me if I'm wrong, about authenticity, actually being yourself. And it's difficult because actually there are a lot of pressures which are forcing us to be phonies, to be something that somebody told us we should become, rather than being yourself. How does that sound to you?
That sounds, when you say the word authenticity, it just really makes my skin prickle at the moment, because everyone's just using the word as just exactly. Like, it's a catchphrase at the moment exactly. For everyone to use, right? Exactly. So that's a word that really does irk me. However, when you say about finding your real authentic self,
being yourself.
Yeah, but I think even there's not enough strength of a word that can convey what being yourself really means.
Your soul, your true self, your true self.
Your true self is not what people see. It's an essence that resonates. It's like saying to someone, I'm intelligent. I can see that through the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
And so you have to. It's not something that can be said. It
something
has
that
to
you do.
Resonate with
something that you do.
Yeah.
It's something that you are. Something that
it comes out of you. It oozes out of you. And so yeah, that for me is when you say authentic. Recently, I heard a woman use the word, and my skin prickled. But then I watched her, and you could see it's part of her DNA. And you're like, okay, I can
get you.
I can run with this woman because she is what I will call authentic.
Okay. So you know what? I'm so glad to have you here because it's not. I'm going to keep saying it. It's not just about the business, and it's not just about being a woman of color. But there's something. So you use the word whole about you in itself that is just a pleasure to behold. Now, my last question for you before we get into your
So loud.
Yeah, before we get into your so loud moment is how do you recover from failure?
Great question.
I've learned to become very silent and really not be introspective so much in regards to just wallow. I think that's the right word. Wallow within my feelings, but I've allowed myself to become silent so I can hear and think clearly the solutions. And sometimes the solutions of doing nothing. And so how I recover from failure or I become silent. For me, I'm a great believer of listening to good music.
Right.
So me and Stevie Wonder are buddies, right? We are friends. Oh Lord, yeah. So me and Stevie Wonder, we go. So I am a great advocate for finding things that make you feel better about yourself. That helps me. Not afraid to cry at all, and just say this is hard. This is really, really difficult. But then at the end of it, make that purposeful decision to say, okay, that was not how I expected it to go. What next?
Right.
And then move on to the next thing, and then say, actually, I might fail at it, but I'm going to keep going. So those are mine.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Tate, do you want us to go into the so loud moment now?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. I'd like to know what those so loud moments are.
My so loud moment, I touched on it earlier on. My so loud moment was discovering Cathy Hughes. And I'm going to say this for anybody that hasn't seen that woman on YouTube, because I'm going to say something as well.
How do you spell Cathy? Is it a C or a K?
A C.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Cathy Hughes. And anyone that hasn't seen any of her works, you've watched her. I definitely know most people would have watched films that she's produced because her network is a massive network, right? And she's done radio shows, and obviously she's in the US, and it transitions over here, probably on Netflix as well. You'll see some stuff. But where Oprah for me was my guiding light, she kind of like brings a resonance to me that Oprah can't bring through her celebrity life. Cathy has got a real granular, grow your business attitude. And
very pragmatic, very commonsensical, just gets on with it.
Yeah.
Gets it done.
But to tie in with International Women's Day, and I hope she hears this, right? So to tie in with that, 2 days ago, she said she's a great advocate for women. So 2 days ago, I just took it upon myself to email her office, and I got a response back.
No way.
Yeah, I got a response.
You don't ask, you don't get. Right?
Exactly. And this is a woman that is absolutely, I'm sure, she runs networks, so she's not really twiddling her thumbs and watching Netflix, right? And so
she's not bored in the office.
No, exactly.
What shall I do next?
Exactly. So Yeah, I got a response from the office, and it was from her PA. And basically, she said, "Okay, Kathy's busy at the moment, but she will get back to you." And she said, "But in the meantime, really good luck with the business, and keep it going." What I was just like, "Oh my God!" And it happened within 48 hours. And I was just like, that woman is a woman of her word.
Integrity.
Amazing.
And so she's a great advocate for women in business, massive advocate. And I asked her about sales.
Okay. So I'm going to go home and do my research on Kathy Hughes.
I
so
really, if you're looking for someone, because there's one thing talking to women who are building a business, but you need people of authority to really help drive you through. And Kathy is a woman who's shown time and time again she can succeed, and she is succeeding. So I mirror her. So trust me, world, look out for me, because I'm coming.
Absolutely adore it.
Fantastic.
Oh my God, I don't believe that we actually just have 4 minutes left. That time has flown by today.
It's been a great program. What I feel really pleased to hear is that you felt so at home to share this. And secondly, really it's a validation, because the Shout Out Loud show was her idea.
A lady.
And it's kind of morphing and growing. And the more we do it, the more it's clear that it has a part to play in the mix of making things happen.
Yeah. I mean,
so,
sorry.
I hope more and more people come join us.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you, Ted, 100%. And great. I didn't know that you came up with the idea, but I'm not surprised. I just didn't know. That's all I'm saying, right? So we're absolutely clear. I'm not surprised at all. And what's the beautiful thing about technology today as well is that I look forward in a few years' time when, we're blown up and we're really, really big out there, that people can look at these archive audio and just see the resonance that runs right the way through, because there is a truth in what's been happening here. And the truth comes out in the way that I was able to relax and tell what I never told anyone else before.
See, I mean, the thing I've loved from what you said is that it was very powerful. It was actually so simple. I could have missed it, but I couldn't. I just want people to reflect me, to reflect back what I'm putting out. Of course, that means that, you're taking care as to what you put out. If you're putting out respect, you're putting out kind of creativity, you're putting out positivity and so on. You don't ask for anything less back.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that cuts to what this show is about a lot, which is to give people the opportunity to be themselves and share their voices and inspire other people to do that.
Yeah.
And even though we're talking a lot about people of colour, one of the things that happens in society, and that's why I asked you the question, have you ever had this kind of conversation on any medium before? These conversations don't happen within the listening of people outside.
Yeah.
So actually, the people outside a certain demographic don't know what people of colour think, feel, or aspire to.
Can I just add one thing,
Sure.
actually, because it just came to mind when you were talking about the radio station, and from a marketing point of view, I'm going to say this, for business people specifically, especially for a platform like this, it doesn't happen for free.
Nope.
All right? Money needs to be invested. And so for business people who do decide to listen to this, I say to them, learn how to spend your money and sponsor shows like this. I do it. I do it with other small radio stations. Do I get a return on investment? Actually, I know for a fact that I don't. But the fact of the matter is, if I support them now, there will be platforms for us to communicate on. So when you were just talking about what this platform is here for, I would say that actually businesses like myself and others need to remember the value of this so that we can keep our messages going out there. And we should sponsor, support, and I'm talking about cash, not collaboration or affiliation. I'm talking about money. Put your money down. It doesn't have to be thousands. A few hundred here and there can help sustain these kind of platforms. And I'm a great advocate for things like that.
We should get her back often. We We
No,
definitely
Thank
need
you
to get
so
her
much.
back.
No, I
No,
really
I
appreciate
really,
that.
no, this is,
But it's common sense. It's real common sense spoken by a business person.
exactly, and we do appreciate it. And yes, this is my one of my babies. This is one of my babies and one of my love. And my whole reason, like I said to you when you sat down, is I'm not creating a show to ambush anyone. This show has a purpose, and the purpose is to celebrate people of color who are stepping up and going out there and creating, because the process of creating anything is difficult and it's hard, and we will stumble, we will fall, we will break, we will stand up, but our purpose is clear. And so if I can celebrate that, and while holding those authentic conversations, I know it's not your favorite word, but when we hold those conversations that give us room to speak our truth, that is why I do what I do. That is why we're creating what we're creating.
Well done.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Give me
much for coming.
someone to
Thanks
come
for
and-
joining us.
You're welcome.
And by the way, great insights. Great insights. Thank you.
Thank you, thank
There
you,
we
thank
are.
you. So we have come to the end of the show. I think, Tate, I know it's International Women's Day, so, we're not really supposed to be working the rest of the evening, so you can
So-
close up the show.
Oh, really? Well, what a pleasure. It's a backhanded pleasure, but it's an absolute delight. Nicola Millington, thank you so much for joining us. Nicola's with FP Comms, the company that markets with love, great marketing consultancy. Take a look at her website, take a look at her Twitter feed, take a look at her blog posts, take a look at her on Instagram, see if she can help your company to grow the way hers has. And of course, Lillian, the one and only Lillian, another terrific show. So it's from us, it's good night.
Thank you.
All right.
And Nicoletta.
Thank
So
you, Nicoletta.
patiently tweeting, Instagramming in the background here. Yeah, that's it.
All right,
That's a wrap.
thank you. All right.
You've been listening to the Shine Out Loud Show. If you want to connect with us or let us know what you thought of today's show, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Shine Out Show.